Hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. Today I'm going to be jumping back in on the challenge Find the Fun in Feb, and it's ran by Hazel from Art by Hazel, and I think her channel might be called Mixed Media on a Shoestring, and Candy from Candy's Crafty Creations. And they're running a challenge during the month of February called Find the Fun in Feb. And the prompt for today is underwater. And it can be any kind of water, I'm pretty sure. And I'm going to be doing some tags with the underwater theme. So I will link both Hazel's and Candy's YouTube channels below in the description for you to head over and have a look at their information on the challenge. And it goes for the whole month of February. And I'm pretty sure that it goes on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. Well, I'm only participating on ones that fall on a Monday because, as you know, most of you only post on a Monday and a Thursday. I know that I could do some of the other prompts, but I'm doing some other projects as well. But I'm enjoying participating on the Mondays. And there's also a hashtag for the challenge, and it's hashtag FFF2026. So head over onto that hashtag and you'll be able to watch all the videos of everybody who's participating in the challenge. So there's some great projects and creations that's been going on. So you're probably thinking, well, Annie, I've been looking while you've been chatting at what's below you, and you can see that I have done a watercolour background. Now I have made two other tags to show you at the end. They're all underwater themes, but each tag has a different story. And I have watercoloured this particular one. I have watercoloured an underwater view looking up to the horizon or to the water's surface, and then a little bit of a sunset that's happening. So we're going to make a tag out of this, and I've also got some fish stamped that we will watercolor together. I've got some examples here and I've got a boat. So let me pull in all of my bits and we're going to put this story together. Okay, so I'm not going to do the watercolor background on the camera, and the reason is because I'm not a watercolor artist. I played with this by watching a couple of videos, and they were very, very helpful videos. I'll tell you who they were by. The underwater one was by a channel called Anna N, and the video was Simple Watercolor Underwater Scene. So I'll link that in the description. And then the sky beyond the horizon line, the video was by an artist called Matthew White, and he does watercolor instructional videos that are very, very helpful. And it says how to paint a stunning sky in watercolor step by step. Well, my sky was very average actually, but it does the job. And like I said, I don't want to do this bit on camera. You can head over if you like what I've done and do it. Neither of them were very difficult. To be honest, I think the sky was harder to do than the underwater bit, but great videos by two very talented watercolor artists. So check those out in the description below if you're interested in that. Now, as you can see, I've stamped out some fish, and the stamp that I used for the fish was this one here, and it's by Stampin' Up. It's a retired stamp. It's quite a few years old, maybe about 4 years old, and I just stamped out some fish onto watercolor paper, and you can see that I have put a little bit of watercolor pigment onto it. I'll do these two with you and show you. I also have stamped out a boat. Now this boat stamp came from my recent haul video that I did some thrifting, and I got it from the thrift shop, and I think that it's a very old wood block stamp from Stampin' Up. And here it is here. Yes, it's an old Stampin' Up stamp. I've got no idea when it was made. Like I said, I got it from the thrift store. So let me show you how I put this colour onto here. This was really, really simple to do. I decided to pull out just 3 colours. I pulled out of my watercolour pencils by Derwent. I pulled out deep cadmium. I pulled out orange chrome. And I pulled out Perusian blue. And all I did with doing these fish was I decided which way was the top and the bottom. And I mixed it up because I wanted my fish going different directions. I put a stripe of blue here, and I hit it with a little bit of water. So let's do that. I'll bring in my water pot with all my different sized brushes in, and I just hit it with some water to spread that blue around. A little bit of excess on the tail. Then I dropped in just a line of yellow, really simple. Once again, I'm not really being too particular about it. And then I did a stripe of the orange underneath. Spread that out. The brush now is not overly wet, it's quite dry now. So there we go, that's the watercolour. Now what I do now is I let that completely dry, and I come back through and I put a little bit of white highlight on it and some black marker. So let me show you on this one that's dry. With my black pen, I just come through and I do a little bit of cross hatching on the back of the fish at the very top, and a few stripes on the tail. And then on the underside with my gel pen, my white gel pen, this is a Uniball Signo white gel pen. I just put a little bit of white gel around the eye and on the tummy of the fish and a little bit on the tail. Then the last thing I do is I hit the eye with some fresh black. Everyone looks different, but they all look pretty fun and lively and colourful, and they'll work with the colours of the scene that we're working on. So there's our fish ready to go. So what I'm going to work on now is I'm actually going to cut down my background and work out where I want my boat. So I've decided that I want my boat around about here, and my measurements for my tag are 9 centimetres wide by 18.5 centimetres long. Now, for those of you that do imperial, that's just over 3.5 inches. So I'm going to then decide where I want my view to be. So I kind of want my boat a little bit off center. So we're going 9 centimetres. So let's mark it there, and I'm going to cut that down, and then I'm going to make it 9 centimetres wide. Oh, that's good. I wanted the sun a little bit off center. And we're just going to take the top off of that, get rid of that rough edge, and then we're going to cut it to 18.5 centimetres. So 18.5 centimetres is just over 7.25. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow of the boat underneath where it would be, so that we have the shadow of the boat coming down in the water. So let's hit that with a little bit of water. Because the boat would leave a little bit of a shadow streaming down. Okay, so we've got a little bit of watercolour there for our boat. And I'm going to stamp a few fish around now. So I've pulled out a stamp, and this one is called Well Done from Stampin' Up. As most of you would know, I've got quite a lot of retired Stampin' Up stamps, and it's got some little fish here. Yes, so I'm going to do those fish in Stays on Cloudy Sky, and I'm just going to stamp a few fish under the water. I hope you're all doing really well and having an amazing weekend. It's a very wet weekend here in Brisbane, but it's nice to actually have a little bit of a change from the heat, because the heat's been quite bad. Now I'm also going to put some birds on. You can see that there's some birds here, and it's called Beside Me, but you could use any bird stamp that you've got, and we'll stamp that with the same Stays on Cloudy Sky, and I'll just try it. Oh yes, they'll be good, won't they, around the boat? You're probably thinking, Annie, what scene are you making? Now I know that in the title of this video it says tags with tucks and dangly bits, and that's exactly what we're about to do. We're going to put some dangly bits on it. Let's put some more birds up the top there. That will be good. So I'm going to bring out the dangly bits in a moment. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to stamp some waves to add a little bit of texture, but also to get the light to shine nicely on it. And the stamp I'm using is Gentle Waves. It's a cling stamp from Stampin' Up, and it's retired, but I like to use all of my resources. I'm just putting some anti-static powder on here, and I'll pull out my Versamark, and I'm just going to put some Versamark onto the stamp, and I'm not going to stamp the whole thing. I'm going to move it around and bend it up a little bit so it has a funny shape. Let's just try that first, and we're going to use some white embossing powder. You might just put a tiny bit down the bottom. And then I'm going to actually brush off what I don't want, because I don't want as many lines on it. And I don't want any straight lines. So I'm just going to brush off some bits that I don't want. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to heat set that now. Okay, I've heat set that, and I'm happy with how that's looking. Now, you're probably thinking, Annie, bring out the dangly bits. Let me do that. I have a boat, which we all have seen, and it's kind of like a charter boat. And I have threaded all of my fish onto a line. There's all my fish. And what I did was, before I cut them out, I punched a hole just in front of its nose and put a very small eyelet in it, and then I cut them out with a eyelet on them. And then my very clever husband, he tied them all on for me with a special knot that I could adjust them and get them how I wanted them to hang. I'm not sure what sort of knot it was, but he tied them, and then he said, when you've decided where you want them, just put a little dab of glue and it will hold them where you want them to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach my dangly fish to my charter boat, and I've got a sentiment that will explain everything. But before I do that, let's turn this into a tag, so I'm going to punch some corners on my tag. That will cut off some of our birds, but that's okay. They can be flying off the page. I'm just going to round the bottom corner, and I'm going to string this to my boat before I glue my boat down. Now, what we want to do is we want to work out where they're going to hang, and the reason I wanted dangly bits on my tag is so that you can write a little secret message on each fish in your journal. That's pretty cute, isn't it? The other tags I've done, some of them have got dangly bits and some of them have got tuck spots. And we're going to stick our boat on, and I need to tie our fish to our boat. And a little bit of double-sided tape will hold that while I glue it down. And we'll glue our boat down now, and I'm just going to use art glitter glue. I'm not going to ink the edges of the boat. I will ink the edges of my tag, but I don't want to do the edges of the boat because I want it to have a white background and not stand out as much on the sunset. Now, the other thing that I have is I have some other fish that we made earlier, and I think that we need to put some fish that are quickly swimming away, because they've worked out that this charter boat that's up the top, whatever that big blob is, it's not good news for their friends. So they're doing a exit stage left. Let's work out where we're going to put our sentiment. Now I'm pulling out a sentiment from Snarky, from Tim Holt's Ideology. Today was going to be a great day until people. And that's the case for these fish, isn't it? Like, they would have been swimming around, having a great day, and then all of a sudden this dark shadow would have come up on the water's surface, and the next thing, some of them are hooked. So it would have been a great day except for when people turned up. Okay, that's good. Now let's get some of these other fish, and they're doing a sprint. He's out of there. This one. We'll chop him off. And this one will have him on there, the whole fish, but heading off. Yes, that's looking good. Okay, I think that's enough fish. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a few white splatters on it, and I'm going to do some air bubbles. Now I'm going to just spread my fish so that they get a few little white splatters on them as well. And I'm just using Liquitex acrylic ink, and I'm just going to dip in the other end of the brush to get a few dots on the bottom of my brush to create a few air bubbles and make them get smaller and smaller. Now I'm going to do a few splatters. Okay, that's pretty dry. Now I'm just going to go around our sentiment with my marker to put some sketchy lines on it. And I also just go underneath the bottom of those fish, just so that there's a bit of a drop shadow under them. Just under the boat, I'll just put a few horizontal lines as well. Actually, I've just drawn my horizon line in with gold, and I'm going to go round the bubbles, some of the bubbles with a fine gold pen, but a very, very fine tip pen. It's called Juice Up number 4, and it's a 0.4 pen, so it's very fine. Just a little pop of gold here and there. I'm going to use a little bit of vintage photo just on the edge because I'm using a craft tag base and I just want them to blend together a little bit. And I quite like the vintage photo with the blue of the water, and it looks lovely with the sky, doesn't it? Look at that. Looks lovely with that watercoloured sky. Okay, we'll glue that to our base and then we'll put a little bit of seam binding on the top of it, I think. And I'll bring in the other ones to show you. This has been so much fun to play with. I've had an absolute ball playing with this theme. And thank you to Hazel and Candy for coming up with such a fabulous prompt. I had a great time playing with some watercolour. And like I said, I'm no great artist with watercolour. My experience with watercolour has been with doing architectural illustrations, putting some watercolour onto buildings, which is much easier to do because things are contained, like it's very precise and easy to figure out. Okay, there's our fish. Now I possibly could have stamped and done a stamp on the back, but I wanted some space to do some journaling. So I'm just going to put a little bit of seam binding with my tiny attacher, and then I'm going to wet it and scrunch it up because I want it to be scrunchy. So I'm just going to spritz it and put a paper clip on it. So I don't want my watercolour to get wet, I just want my seam binding to get wet. And I'm just going to scrunch that up and put a paper clip on it so that it can dry all scrunched. And while it's drying, we'll have a look at our other tags. So I'll clear up and bring them all out for you. Okay, so here's my first one that I made actually. And I did the background, the same watercolour background 3 times and did just a different scene. But I wanted to create some tuck spots on the scene with some dangly bits. So you can see here we have some coral. And this one is mainly about the coral. And then we have this turtle here who's heading up to the surface. And he's saying, I do this thing called what I want, because I'm not sure whether any of you have been snorkeling and have seen turtles in the wild, but they really just beat to their own drum. And he just is doing what he wants. And you can see that I have fussy cut out just some coral, all different types of coral. And I've done a similar thing with the background where I've done the heat embossing and I've done the white dots with the back of my paintbrush, stamped a few fish, and then made this coral, and I've got a tuck spot in the face of the tag, which is a hidden journaling spot. So for people that wouldn't know, when they're flicking through your journal, you can see that you can write a secret message on your piece of coral, tuck it into the tuck spot. It is a hidden message. So that was my first one. You can see the back is just plain for you to be able to journal on as well. And like I said, just some seam binding on the top that I've scrunched up with a paper clip after I'd moistened it with some water. I also put a little bit of cotton just underneath some of the coral. I did put some shadows around and put a little bit of shadowing on the coral with some watercolour. So there was our first one with the underwater theme. Then the next one, I did the same with the seam binding and the same background, but this one I made it all about the fish. And so I've put in a piece of coral in the background, but it's just black and white coral because I didn't want it to be the hero. I wanted the fish to be the hero. And I didn't do tuck spots with this one. I did flipping out fish that flip out and tuck back in for you to write a secret message on the back of some of the fish. Now, only 3 of the fish flip out. You can see here those 3 flip out. And these ones up here are glued down. I did the same with the heat embossing and the stamping and the air bubbles and a bit of white splatter. And I've just made these fish by putting them on some acetate and folding a piece of acetate and sandwiching it between the fish and some cardstock, and they just fold out. And then when you've written your message, you can tuck them back in. Their tails just tuck underneath a little piece of the coral for it to stay pretty much closed. So there's that one. It's nice and dimensional, this one. Hopefully the camera is picking up how dimensional that one is. So I was happy with how that one turned out. And this one says, embrace beautiful chaos. Because if you've been snorkeling in a coral reef, there are fish everywhere. And they're all in like little small habitats where they just go nuts. They just are constantly moving, swimming, trying to find little bits of food in their little area. And there's fish everywhere, but they're all chaotically looking for food, and they're also trying to make sure that they don't become food. So they're a little bit frantic. So that's why I put embrace beautiful chaos. And I kind of overloaded the image. Initially, I was only going to put 3 fish on. And once I decided on the sentiment, I thought, no, I'm going to make it a little bit chaotic because, well, that's what it's like at the coral reefs that I've been to. And then our last one. So let's take our paper clip off of our seam binder. You can see that it's scrunching it up. If I leave it on, it'll go a little bit more scrunched. And this was our last one for today. So we've got our fish that were having a great swim around in the water until the people arrived. So it says today was going great until people. And the charter boat turned up to go fishing. We've got a lovely sunset about to happen with some birds and some nice rays of sun going down through the water and fish swimming around, but unfortunately 5 of them have been captured. But it's a nice little dangle for you to have in your journal and for you to write a little message on the back of every fish as well. So there we go. That's my 3 tags that I created with an underwater theme, one about coral, one about coral reef fish, and one about surviving life underwater. And that was our theme for today. Underwater was our prompt. So thank you very much for joining me today. If you liked the video and the tags, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos. And think about subscribing so that you don't miss some of the exciting projects that I've got coming up. I've got quite a few planned. And head on over and check out Hazel and Candy's channels. And thank you to both of them for hosting this collab. It's got some really great prompts in it. And check out the hashtag as well to have a look at what everyone else is making. All right, that's all from me today. I hope you all have a really fun week creating something fun and new. And I will see you on Thursday with another project. Thanks again, everybody. Bye for now.